out right over here, directly across from us on Meeting Street. But what happens, they have a meeting house, and no matter what denomination you are, you can go there and worship. What happens is once people go there and they get enough people to start their own churches, they kind of break away from the meeting house and start their own churches. Like I said, today in Charleston, we have over 140 churches. There's a larger concentration of churches here than in Jerusalem or in Rome, Italy. And that is why we are called the Holy City. I always have to tell people that it has nothing to do with our behavior as people. You know, this has always been a port city. It's been a port city since day one. So from our inception here, we've always had sailors here, and we've always catered to those sailors with a lot of drinking establishments and stuff like that.
How old are these buildings?
Mid-1800s, I would say mid-1800s, early 1800s. There's a house up here on the right from 1797. Actually 1793, so it's from the 1700s, but generally speaking, that whole area back there, I'd say mid-1800s, early 1800s. And the area that we're in right now is simply called the French Quarter. I don't know if you've seen any of our street signs, but if you look at our street signs, if you're in a historic neighborhood, it'll say so on the street signs. This whole area that we're in right now, that starts like basically from the market area where we started up to Broad Street, and a couple blocks in each direction to your side here, is called the French Quarter. The reason why you have a French Quarter in an English settlement, I said those English kind of wanted to let everybody over here. One of the first groups to take the English up on that offer were the French Protestants, also known as Huguenots. I would say Huguenots in France and Huguenots. How about Huguenots everywhere else on planet Earth? Here in Charleston, we call them Huguenots, or they proudly call themselves Huguenots. But these are these Protestants. What was happening over in France, they had just revoked what was called the Edict of Nantes, and that's what protected those Protestants over in France. Once they revoked that, the Catholics are persecuting these Protestants again, so they were like, we can stay here in France and maybe die, or we can take the English up on this offer and go over to across the pond to this Charlestown place and we can worship whatever we want. So they come over here. On our way out, when we go back into the market area, we pass the only active French Huguenot church left in North America. The only active French Huguenot church in North America is here in Charleston. We'll pass it on our way out. That's a house that dates back to the 1790s. Looks kind of new. And this is something you won't see a lot of in downtown Charleston, cobblestone streets. We don't have a lot of cobblestone streets remaining. I think we have 8 total. What's kind of interesting about them are the rocks themselves. I said this was an English settlement. All of those rocks came from England. You won't find rocks like that anywhere in the southeastern United States. All of those came from England. Most of them came from riverbeds in England. But they came over on the ships as what they would have called ballasts or ballast stones or weights. The tall-masted wooden ships that are coming over from England, well, they're going to be top-heavy, very unstable on the open ocean without any cargo inside. And they weren't bringing enough stuff over here to weight it down. So they were looking for something really heavy and preferably cheap that they could put in the holes of the ship. River rocks were the perfect material. And it was a one-way trip over here. They didn't need those rocks for the return voyage because they were always taking goods from the New World back over to England with them. Whether it was starting off would have been just lumber, like trees, forests of trees. They would have been chopping those down and sending those back over to England. Later on, it was Indian trade, like deer skins and beaver pelts and furs. And then later on, we had slave labor here cultivating cash crops like rice, indigo, cotton, tobacco, all kinds of stuff like that. So, like I said, plenty of stuff to weight them down for the return voyage. We got stuff with the rocks, and they did all kinds of stuff like build roads with them. Now, to your right over here, the big building, it's called the People's Building, 18 Broad Street. When that was built here for the first time in 1911, they called that Charleston's first skyscraper. Like if you look at the skyline here in Charleston, all of the buildings are 2, 3, maybe 4 stories tall, but nothing like that 8-story tall buildings. And once that went in 1911, they thought all the buildings here were going to turn into skyscrapers, and we were going to look like Manhattan. That didn't happen. But yeah, that was the first building in Charleston.